Officials said that the epidemic has passed its peak. People said that they must wait 2 weeks for their turn at crematoriums. People don't even have enough money to buy urns. Over 1,000 cases of people burning dead bodies by themselves. China's population has dropped for the first time in 6 decades. Another attempt to conceal the epidemic? China's GDP increased by 3% last year. Local government debts grew even faster. It's all covered in today's China Truths. Officials said that the epidemic has passed its peak. People said that they must wait 2 weeks for their turn at crematoriums. While the epidemic continues to sweep across China, officials in several areas, including Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Beijing, have declared that the epidemic is reaching its end and that the peak has passed. On January 18, Zhang Yi, deputy director and spokesperson for the Guangzhou Municipal Health and Health Commission, said that the current COVID epidemic is soon to come to an end and that the infection rate in the population had exceeded 85%. Outpatient and emergency departments at hospitals have somewhat returned to normal levels of diagnosis and treatment. On January 17, Shanghai Release announced that the epidemic has spread rapidly since mid-December 2022, peaked in late December, and then declined significantly. The situation has basically returned to normal. As early as January 10, Beijing's acting mayor, Yin Yong, said, "Our epidemic situation in Beijing has passed the peak of infection." Despite the CCP officials' declaration that the epidemic's peak in Beijing and other major cities has passed, the public's opinions seemingly disagree. People said that even if all of the crematoriums in Shanghai and Hangzhou were fully operating, the waiting time for cremation was still more than 2 weeks. Mainland Chinese are still sharing videos on the internet demonstrating that many crematoriums are still full and that huge lines are waiting for cremation. According to local funeral industry specialists, funeral homes around the country are now under a state of emergency, so funeral homes are strictly segregated into jurisdictional areas. For example, the remains of deceased residents under the responsibility of the Suzhou Funeral Home will not be picked up by other nearby areas, not even Taicang City, a county-level city under Suzhou's jurisdiction. A video shared on the internet shows that Suzhou funeral homes are jammed, which has never happened for a century. In the meantime, people in Taicang funeral homes generally start queuing the night before for cremation. A Twitter user said, "Suzhou funeral homes are overcrowded for the first time in a century. Come to see the elderly mother one last time." Another netizen said, "This winter, funeral homes around the country have been packed with the deceased and their families, full of mourners. What kind of scene is this? A scene that hasn't been seen in over 70 years." Mr. Zhao, a pseudonym and Hangzhou resident who works in Shanghai, told Radio Free Asia that his grandfather passed away in the Hangzhou epidemic recently and that he now has to find a relationship to arrange a smooth cremation. Mr. Zhao said, "Hangzhou has roughly 8 or 9 funeral homes, all of which are full, and cremations must be queued for at least 2 weeks. Not only in Hangzhou but also at my local friend's house in Shanghai, someone died as a result of the new COVID epidemic. Come on. Keeping remains in cold storage and queuing cost money every day." He said that the funeral home staff informed him that the cold storage was full of bodies and that all memorial activities had been stopped. Hu Liren, a Chinese private entrepreneur in the United States, told Radio Free Asia that his father, who was in his 90s and had underlying conditions, passed away due to the epidemic in Shanghai on January 11. He managed to take care of his father's funeral with the help of family and friends in his hometown. He said, "I have a friend who told me that his mother died on the same day as my father. His mother lived in Jinqiao Town, Pudong District, Shanghai. The cremation will have to wait until the 29th of this month." According to Uliran, funeral homes are now cremating 24 hours a day. Under normal conditions, the remains would be cremated within 3 to 4 days after entering the funeral home, but they now have to wait 2.5 weeks. He estimated that the recent death toll was maybe 12 times higher than usual. People don't even have enough money to buy urns. Over 1,000 cases of people burning dead bodies by themselves? Recently, a piece of news has caused a lot of discussion on the internet. According to the Epoch Times, after a Peking University professor's ashes were cremated and his son went looking for an urn, he realized that the cheapest one cost 7,000 yuan, about $1,000. Even though the staff informed the son that this was already the cheapest one and that he shouldn't be hesitant to acquire a better urn for his father, he eventually took the ashes and put them in a plastic bag. The incident was later revealed by the funeral home staff. They intended to accuse the professor's son of being a bad son, but instead, they had to face criticisms from netizens. Ms. Li from Beijing told the Epoch Times that all they want to do is conduct their business. People are compelled to spend as much as possible at funeral homes. But considering that urns usually cost only a few hundred yuan, why should people buy such an expensive urn from them? As previously reported, when the number of deaths soared and funeral homes became overcrowded, funeral services also took advantage of the occasion to dramatically raise prices. Funeral scalpers also arose, seizing the chance to profit from the dead. A staffer at the Beijing Dishengxiang funeral service provider told Bloomberg News that cremation could be arranged in 3 days for 68,000 yuan, about $10,000, and same-day cremation would cost 88,000 yuan, about $13,000. Under normal conditions, funeral services only cost several thousand yuan. Because funeral expenses have risen significantly, many people have been forced to burn the remains of their loved ones by themselves. There are reports on the internet regarding these tragic situations from time to time. On January 8, Zhao Lanjian, a former mainland media employee, shared a video on social media showing a group of people in mourning clothes burning dead bodies on the side of the road in Anhui. Yuan Hongbing, a Chinese jurist and dissident in Australia, told the Epoch Times that he obtained an internal report from an insider. According to the report, there were over 1,200 incidents of burning bodies on desolate mountains. In such a predicament, the poor people can only lament, "I can't afford to live under the zero-COVID policy, and I can't afford to die now." China's population has dropped for the first time in 6 decades. Another attempt to conceal the epidemic? According to the Communist Party of China's National Bureau of Statistics, China's population was 1.41175 billion by the end of 2022, a fall of 850,000 from 1.4126 billion in the same period last year. This is China's first official decline in population since 1961, the last year of the country's Great Famine. Furthermore, China has seen the highest mortality rate since 1976. According to the official statement, there were 10.41 million deaths, with a death rate of 7.37 deaths per thousand, up from 7.18 in 2021. The CCP's decades-long one-child policy, implemented in 1979 and lifted in 2016, is mostly to blame for the declining population. To enforce the policy, the Chinese regime used forced sterilization and abortion. According to CCP statistics, China's birth population has declined for a total of 5 consecutive years, from 2017 to 2021. To combat the declining birth rate, the CCP immediately amended the birth policy from 1 child to 2 children in 2015, and subsequently to 3 children in 2021. To encourage young people to have more children, some cities have introduced new fertility incentives, such as cash rewards and extended durations of parental leave. However, it was unable to reverse the downward trend. According to Frank Tianxia, a business professor and associate professor of marketing at the University of South Carolina Aiken, the low birth rate indicates that younger Chinese citizens are now unwilling to have children. He said, "Housing, education, childcare, and medical costs all add up to an absolutely prohibitive cost of having children. Young people simply do not want to get married or have children as a result of the high costs." It's still uncertain how much COVID-19 deaths influenced population numbers in 2022. Even though China has officially declared a low number of deaths, the regime has been accused of providing false data and underreporting such numbers. Under pressure from the World Health Organization, China's National Health Commission reported on January 14 that there were 59,938 COVID-related deaths from December 8 last year to January 12 this year. This statistic falls well short of the international estimate that millions of people died as a result of the epidemic. When the BBC tweeted about the news, netizens responded by refuting the CCP's falsification. A netizen stated, "The population has been falsified to the point that it is seriously asymmetric and cannot be concealed. It must be more than this number." The downward trend began a few years ago. Isn't this a foreshadowing of concealing the epidemic's death toll? The death toll from the epidemic alone is at least 100 million. According to population data calculated by Japan and Russia, China has only about 800 million people, making it no longer a populous country. The 1.4 billion is just a big fake figure made by local governments for political purposes or to apply for subsidies from the central government. China's GDP increased by 3% last year. Local government debts grew even faster. China's frequent COVID-19 outbreaks in 2022 have led to production stagnation and economic recession. Pillar industries such as real estate continued to decline. Furthermore, the zero-COVID policy and frequency of COVID-19 nucleic acid testing also caused a significant rise in local government expenses and debts. According to the most recent CCP statistics, outstanding local government debt was 35 trillion yuan, $4.9 trillion, at the end of November 2022, up 15% from 30.5 trillion yuan, $4.26 trillion, at the end of 2021. This is a 16% increase from 30.2 trillion yuan, $4.2 trillion, in November 2021, greatly surpassing the 3% growth rate stated by China's Statistics Bureau on January 17. Many Chinese provinces' revenue decreased year-on-year from January to November 2022, but spending climbed significantly. As a result, local governments' revenue considerably exceeded their spending. According to published data, the local government's general public budget revenue was nearly 10 trillion yuan, $1.4 trillion, from January to November 2022, a 3% drop from the same period last year. Local government spending, on the other hand, increased by 6.2% to 19.6 trillion yuan, $2.73 trillion. Meanwhile, real estate, the primary source of local government funding, continues to shrink. Property developers in China have shown a low willingness to acquire land in 2022, with the total land sold in the first 10 months of 2022 plummeting 53% from the same period last year. Land transaction values have also dropped by 47%. Deed taxes, a component of land and property-related taxes, dropped by 24% from January to November 2022 compared to the same period the previous year. The value-added tax on land was dropped by 9%. Commercial real estate sales have also dropped dramatically. Between January and October 2022, the total area of commercial properties sold in China declined by 22% year-on-year, while sales volume fell by 26%. Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.